The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Yesterday, with a scheduled change in Saskatchewan, we became in Nova Scotia the lowest minimum wage jurisdiction in the country. And there are now so many measures of consumer purchasing power where we're at the bottom. The worst consumer debt delinquency, the worst youth unemployment, the worst percentage of our population living on low income. And effective economic growth cannot possibly be advanced with purchasing power at this level. Will the Premier acknowledge that it is now time for Nova Scotia to join progressive jurisdictions in the march towards a minimum wage of $15?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. We continue, Mr. Speaker, to follow the practice of the former government when it came to their minimum wage committee. We continue to make those increases. I also want to tell him that when we had an opportunity to provide the single largest tax cut in the history of our province, we did so on the basic personal exemption, so that it would impact and leave more money in the pockets of the very individuals that he's referring to. Continue to invest in rent supplements, Mr. Speaker, so we can afford affordable housing within inside of our province. And I want to update the honourable member that when they were in government, youth unemployment was about 19%. It's continuing to go down. It's around 16%, Mr. Speaker. It's still too high, but we're moving in the right direction, and more young people are seeing a future for themselves in this province of ours.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, it is inappropriate economics to compare the benefits of a $15 minimum wage to the benefits that come from what the Premier is speaking about in a tax credit change. It is to compare hundreds with thousands. You know, yesterday was a big day on this front in Canada. Alberta moved to a $15 minimum wage. And how did they do it? They did it over a 3-year phase-in. And during the 3 years while they moved to $15, what we did in Nova Scotia was go fall to the basement on the minimum wage front with annual increases of 15 cents. Will the Premier give consideration to the fact that we cannot be labour market competitive in Nova Scotia as a 15-cent jurisdiction in a $15 world?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. I want to again remind him, Mr. Speaker, they had an opportunity to make adjustments in the economic future of this province, Mr. Speaker. I think Nova Scotians spoke loud and clear when they saw what happened to the economy of this province under an NDP government. I want to assure the honourable member we take this issue very seriously. I want to also remind him our population is at an all-time high, Mr. Speaker, which means more people are moving into this province, Mr. Speaker, than leaving. I want to remind the honourable member under our leadership, Mr. Speaker, we continue to see more young people stay in this province than go, Mr. Speaker. Under their direction, Mr. Speaker, young people were leaving this province. They're now staying, investing, building a future for themselves. I want to remind the honourable member we just invested in a pre-primary program that helps, Mr. Speaker, every social-economic disadvantaged family to have their 4-year-old in school, Mr. Speaker. That's an investment in the future of this province. We're going to continue to make public policy, Mr. Speaker, that makes sense for this province, not what makes sense for Alberta. We're going to continue driving the economy and provide hope for our citizens.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
October 1st was also a big date on the calendar in that it marks the month in which we are going to come to the 6th year in which this government has been in power, at which point I would begin to think the government would think more about the present and the future than the Premier's analysis of the now fairly distant past. Look, an hour ago, there was a demonstration at the offices of the Minister of Labour and Advanced Education, following from a demonstration at Dalhousie for $15 an hour. Speakers there talked about the scandalous fact that today our minimum wage is not worth as much inflation adjusted as it was in 1977. I want to say plainly and without malice that, in my view, the Premier is providing terrible leadership in allowing our province to have the lowest minimum wage in the entire country. And I want to ask him if he will take advantage of the present moment to reverse this mistaken judgment.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I'm taking by that question the honourable member didn't vote for me. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is we laid a very different vision for this province, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is, under their leadership, we saw no migration of young people. Under our leadership, young people see a future for themselves here in this province. I want to tell the honourable member, not only under their leadership, Mr. Speaker, population was stagnant, Mr. Speaker. Under our leadership, the population is growing, Mr. Speaker. I want to remind the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, that low-income families saw no hope of providing their 4-year-olds with a pre-primary program, evidence-based, Mr. Speaker, under our leadership, Mr. Speaker. Every socioeconomic disadvantaged child deserves the same thing as those who are doing well, Mr. Speaker. I want to continue to remind the honourable member the economy of this province is booming, Mr. Speaker. We're moving forward. People see hope, and no matter how much he wants to drag us into the past, we're looking to the future.